In the time I'd known Michael Jackson, we'd touched on most aspects of his life, save for one, his relationship with children. For me, perhaps the most disturbing aspect of his life story.
Yes, disturbing indeed, but it's all a part of the programming. The man was set up to embody Peter Pan, just in regards to him being put under MK Ultra programming. Peter Pan programming, Arrested Development. That's what it's all about when it comes to Michael Jackson, or that's part of what it's all about.
As he often does, he'd invited a group of disadvantaged children to Neverland. They couldn't believe their luck.
As you come down this way, you're gonna see the game room is right there. See where that big machine is inside? That's where I play all my games. And that's the tennis court. Ooh, hold on. Tell me, hold on. Don't fall out. Oh my God, if you dance too, I'll dance with you guys.
I dance too.
Because I'm kind of shy.
You gonna dance for us?
You gotta dance with me.
You gotta teach us how to do the moonwalk.
Oh, you know how to do the
Teach us how to
moonwalk.
do it. No,
I learned it from you guys.
What's over there?
Oh, don't stand up yet. Hold on. I'm pretty bad. Okay, don't stand up yet. It's gonna jerk. It's gonna jerk. It's gonna, one little jerk. Okay. Okay, now you can go. But don't run. Whatever you do, don't run.
Let me fill your heart with
He was evidently enjoying the company of the children, and they liked being there too.
How about a snow cone? Oh, I buy them from companies around the world. I'm getting a roller coaster next to go over there. And
You have a roller coaster? Do you have a water park?
I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna build a water park on the other side of this mountain.
You got a water park?
No, we're going to. We're gonna build it. So you can come in your swimsuit.
Michael, can we go on any ride?
Yeah, sure.
What the children wanted, they got, and everything was free. And for a day, Jackson got to be one of them.
Yes, Jackson got to be one of them. Jackson got to be one of the kids. You know, assuming the position of that altered state, young forever. This is even why he says that the kids taught him how to moonwalk, because it goes into that youthful element of the mind state that Michael Jackson is in regards to the Peter Pan programming. Never getting old. Magic. The mind is magic. And the justification for inspiration based off of the wanting to stay young. The unwillingness to get older. That's all a part of the programming. And it's not to take away from what you see with the kid, because it's a beautiful thing, like the beautiful children. All that stuff is nice, it's cool, but when it comes to the nitty-gritty, truthful element of these entertainers that undergo the programming and the procedures, these things that you see is part of it. So when you see Michael Jackson and he has the Neverland Ranch and he's with the kids, it's part of the programming. And sometimes, it's not to say that when you see a regular celebrity with a child, it's some programming thing. It's just a regular thing. But for the most part, when it comes to these celebrities, they're under programming. And the things that they act out, what you see them a part of, what they align themselves with, it goes back to the initial programming development. And it's with Michael Jackson, it's with a Drake, Michael Jordan, so on and so forth. That's what it's about. So Michael Jackson's thing was the kids, being associated with children, Peter Pan programming. That's why he had the allegations against him with children. But it wasn't of his own volition. It wasn't of his own mind. He was programmed. That's what it's about.
Your favorite Michael Jackson stories?
Oh man, it was one that he wasn't there,
Mm-hmm.
and Jermaine Jackson took me to Neverland for the first time, and Michael wasn't there. Of course, I was looking for him everywhere. Where's Michael? He said Michael might be here. He said, no, Michael's not here. He said where's Michael? Then I was in his office doing, just touring, walking around. I think it was one of his offices, and I spilled some cocoa on his couch. And I just thought it was the worst thing in the world. Wasn't nobody, and I was like, man, how could I do this? I'll never be invited back again. I said, I can't believe this. And I told Jermaine, Jermaine, guess what I did? I spilled some cocoa on Michael's couch. He said, oh man, don't worry about that. Michael don't care about that. Come on, let's go on the Ferris wheel. He was like, I was making a big deal about, spilling something, because that's how I think, Neverland is so magical and precious. But that was my very first time there. And Michael, I didn't meet him, but I met Michael later on. And then, of course, I went to Neverland several times, and he was there.
The reason why I wanted to get into the Chris Tucker angle is because when you look at certain interviews or certain celebrities where they talk about some sort of time in their life where they linked up with another celebrity and they didn't know each other and whatnot, part of that is due to predictive programming. That's what it is. Like you'll hear about a certain celebrity talk about how they were at this place or that place, and they don't have really nothing to do with being at that place, just in hindsight when you understand their celebrity now. But it makes sense when you understand the predictive programming element. Like these people were meant to be together. They were meant to pair together for some sort of predictive element. Like Alicia Keys on the Bill Cosby show. Or a better example would be like, how do I say? I'm just trying to think of an example where you had a celebrity say, hey, I actually went to that place. I actually was there. Like a famous, like Kendrick Lamar, where he says that when he was younger, he was at the California Love video shoot. All that stuff was based in predictive programming, because now he has this altar of being reincarnated Tupac, and that's all based in predictive programming. That's just an example, but you can look at certain interviews and you consider like, and then you take in consideration other interviews that you've seen, and you understand that this is just a system. This is a system. That's why you have to pick up on things. You have to consider like the multitude of what's being conveyed to you as opposed to just an isolated thing. You have to contextualize. That way you come to a better conclusion. You feel what I'm saying? Like the reason why I'm saying this is because of the like how much times I've watched interviews of celebrities happen to say like, hey, I've been to this place when I was this years old or what have you, and they made it to stardom. You feel what I'm saying? That's part of the predictive element. That's what that is. So Chris Tucker just goes into his brief time with Michael Jackson in regards to their history. In April 2023, around the release of his latest film, Air, Tucker gave a cover story interview to GQ. And it was his friendship with Jackson that kicked off the piece, telling the publication that Jackson was a dear friend and that he just wanted him to work more. He used to always say, let's make history. We want to see more of you, Chris. What are you doing? Later on in the interview, he further explained how the two first met, saying, I was in New York for 2 days waiting to meet MJ. I took a private jet there. I said, well, I ain't heard from him. I gotta go. Took a private jet back to LA, and as soon as I landed, I had a message. Michael Jackson wants to meet you tomorrow morning. I was still on the plane. I went up to the captain and said, I'll pay you whatever you want to take me back to New York. So that's how he was able to meet Michael, and the rest is history. In 2012, 3 years after Jackson's passing, Tucker gave an interview with the Ricky Smiley Show where he spoke more about the bond on the two had. The Ricky Smiley Show, an Atlanta-based radio station. I think that's on V103 or Power 105. Or Power 107, excuse me. I used to live in Atlanta for about 6 years, so. Where he spoke more about the bond the two had. Here are some excerpts courtesy of MJJC, who pulled and transcribed them at the time of the actual interview. It was incredible, man. He was like a modern-day king. The king of pop, and the king also being associated with the sun god. Michael Jackson was a worshiper of Heru, just based off of the alignment and the conveyances in regards to, what these subjects, these MK Ultra subjects that being most of these celebrities have to push. And part of it is off of triggers and them being programmed to do so. And he was the nicest guy ever. He was a friend of mine. And of course, I was a fan of his. I grew up being his fan. My biggest moment with Michael was when I made him laugh and he didn't even know. He would just be laughing. He would just laugh to the way I talk because I guess he thought I was country. When asked, yeah, you know, Chris Tucker, he has that way about him where it's just hard to not laugh when he talks. Like, you know, even, you know, especially when he first started out, like on movies like Friday and whatnot, you just hear him talk. Just funny, man. When asked if he ever played jokes on Michael, no, he's being facetious here. Oh, no, I was scared he would have thrown me out of Neverland. I wanted to stay at Neverland. I was like, oh, no, yeah, Neverland is that place. Neverland is like that Transylvania place for these subjects, for these assets to dwell there and have this sort of imaginary stay. When I say imaginary stay, obviously they're there, but they have this like programming, this programming to where they want to be there forever because it's part of that never getting older element. That's the program. That's the Peter Pan programming. That's what it is. More memorable moments. He changed my name. He started to call me Christmas. Now, this is very interesting. Michael Jackson calling him Christmas. Michael Jackson's name means he who is like God, or he who is a gift from God. And we know that Chris means the anointed one. Chris, going back to Christophoros, I believe that is, in Egypt, the Egyptian, or excuse me, the Greek, Christophoros. And you break that down, you know, you shorten it, and it just means the anointed one, carried by the anointed one. So he calls him Christmas. Now we know Christmas is an allusion to the holiday that is based in the worship of Heru or Horus, the sun god. So essentially that's what Michael Jackson is calling him. He's calling him the light bearer. That's what he's calling him. He carries the chosen. He's the chosen, but on the left-hand side, that being the light bearer. That's why Michael Jackson was programmed to call Chris Tucker Christmas, because it's based in the worship of the sun god. And the entertainment industry, just as a collective, just as a shared, you know, system of belief, that's what they push. He said, "Hey, Christmas." I said, "Who are you talking about? What is wrong with him?" He said, "I'm talking about you. Your name sounds like Christmas. It's beautiful. You should keep it." Mike was a genius man. One time we were at Vegas, and this is crazy. Michael went shopping. We went to this place at the Venetian. That's when I realized I was with Michael Jackson. I mean, these people swarm him like Jesus. You see how he talks about Christmas and then, you know, just suddenly he goes into the Jesus aspect. This is all purposeful. This is all purposeful. It's no coincidence that he mentions Jesus after the whole Christmas element, because Jesus is just a name. You know, that's just a name. Jesus meaning the Savior or what have you. That's just a name here on the earth. But when it comes to the understanding of the truth, Yahweh Shah HaMashiach, the light bearer, in regards to the understanding on the right-hand side, the chosen for Israel and their sins, so they can live and have a chance. That's what it's really about when it comes to HaMashiach, the chosen, the Christ, the Messiah. That's when I realized I was with Michael Jackson. I mean, people swarm at him like Jesus. I couldn't believe it. They pushed me out of the way. They thought I was his security guard. They were like, man, Michael Jackson's security guard looks like Chris Tucker. I was like, damn, get off of me. Michael gotta go. I'm going to the movies with Jackson. You know what? We go to the movies sometime. Both of us like going to the movies sometime. So we go to the movies, but it's hard because Michael got to sneak in the movie right before it starts. So Michael coming in like with a ninja suit on. He's hiding, all black. All of a sudden, I'm sitting there. Where's Michael? All black for Saturnian principles. I know most of y'all are probably listening to this like, this dude is always talking about the Saturnian and the pagan and the occult, because it's a consistent theme. It's constantly reoccurring. It's here. It's prevalent. It's pervasive. You may not understand it because you don't have the understanding. That's all it is. When you have the understanding, of course, you're going to talk about it because it's here. It's in your face. It's just that certain people are not spiritual enough to understand it, and certain people are not knowledgeable enough to understand it. When you're spiritual and when you're spiritual and knowledgeable, you're always gonna, this is something that you're always gonna be on. It's not to say that you're just stuck on this. You know what I mean? You have to be versatile, of course, but at the end of the day, this is the world we live in. It just is what it is, and obviously we in these last days, so it's gonna be more and more heightened. Even though this is a story from back in the days, but still, And I turn around and he's like, hey, hey, Chris. I'm like, oh, man, how long have you been here? He said, about 5 minutes. I'm sorry. Did I scare you? Sorry, Chris. At Jackson's 30th anniversary concert, Michael was a good friend of mine. Michael called me on the phone and was like, is this Chris Tucker? I said, yeah, who's this? He said, this is Michael Jackson. It's funny, like, these celebrities, they never talk about how the person get their number. This is how you know that these people are all controlled. They all controlled. Because motherfuckers just give them their number. Like, it's just crazy. This is Michael Jackson. I said, what's up, Mike? And he said, I just wanted to call and tell you that I've seen your movie Rush Hour 2 and you're kicking with the wrong leg. Tucker has delivered some other fun anecdotes about his relationship with Jackson, but being a true loyal friend he is, even in death, won't divulge anything beyond that. That leads us to what Jackson had to say about Tucker. On the filming of You Rock My World, it's very hard to work with Chris Tucker because when the director says action, you just start screaming, laughing. I just look at him and his eyes pop out of his head because he's so funny. And that's what makes it difficult, yeah, because them eyes bulging and you just, dilating a little bit. He does these little things in between where he's just improvising and it's very funny. While receiving the Artist of the Century honor at the 2002 American Music Awards, which you can watch here, Chris Tucker, you are the funniest man alive. Here are a few more miscellaneous pictures of Jackson and Tucker. And these are just pictures just going into, their history and whatnot. Michael Jackson wore red, black, and white a lot. He wore red, black, and white a lot. Whether it be black and white, black and red, black, and white, you always wore a color that had to do with red, black, or white. For the most part, obviously you've seen him in different colors, but most of his pictures you see him in red, black, and white. Like this picture here, you see him in the blue, obviously. But Michael Jackson, he was the embodiment of Peter Pan, or Pan, the Greek god. That's what it's based in, just when it comes to the understanding of his programming. Going back to the Greek god Pan, the god of pedophilia, the god of hypnotism, where you lure the kids based off of the sound of your music, the enchantments, so on and so forth. The same thing with these celebrities, and Michael Jackson was one of the biggest ones who embodied that.
Making his way down this hallway, past this receiving line of greeters.
He's the most famous person on planet Earth at this time.
This is 1988.
How does it feel to be meeting the royalty tonight?
Very exciting.
Boom, we got Prince Charles then, now King Charles.
And behind him, who is now dwarfing the king of pop,
the iconic Princess Diana, just looking like the epitome of grace.
It all raises the question of, what are they here to do?
They had just a big,
giant check
with the bad logo from his album and a Pepsi logo. It is worth $450,000.
Michael Jackson's autograph, bottom right corner. But the most curious detail that we are pausing this video to zoom in on is the recipient of this giant $450,000 check.
Which would be the Prince's Trust, which supports a building that houses and controls Michael Jackson's favorite thing in the entire world, Peter Pan.
You have a theory that you're positing that this video, that nobody else has noticed in this way, happens to be the scene of a quid pro quo that enabled the most infamous celebrity home in America to be named Neverland Ranch.
Allegedly.
Now, coming across this is what sparked my interest in making this video, as well as the connections between Michael Jackson and Peter Pan. Peter Pan's Neverland Nightmare is an upcoming 2025 British independent horror film written and directed by Scott Jeffrey. It is the third installment in the Twisted Childhood universe, the TCU, twisted title as well, and is a horror retelling of J.M. Barrie's Peter Pan. Now, this is the left-hand understanding, or just the left-hand vibration of Peter Pan, even though it's left all in itself, but overtly left, because the regular version is surreptitious. But if you can pick up on what the dynamic is, then you understand that it's left as well. But, the Neverland Nightmare is overtly left, right? The film stars Martin Portlock as the titular character and Megan Placido as Wendy Darling, with Kit Green, Peter DeSouza, Charity Case, Charity Case? That's his person's name? Teresa Bonham, Nicholas Woodson, Kirsten Warren, Alumide, Alurunfumi, and Campbell Wallace. Excuse me for butchering some of these names, man. It's just crazy. In supporting roles, it follows Wendy as she embarks on a quest to find her brother Michael. Now we understand that this is going into Michael Darling. But Michael, that's an allusion to Michael Jackson. That's an allusion to Michael Jackson because there's similarities between Michael Darling and Michael Jackson. Michael Jackson never wanted to get old. He always wanted to stay young. He wanted to be a child forever. Michael Jackson had issues with his parents, with his father, certain issues with his father, just like the inspiration for the character Michael, that being Michael Davies. He had problems with his father, George Davies, in which Jay and Barry gets inspiration from that, you know, and from them as well, that family. So Michael, who was abducted by Peter Pan and Tinkerbell. Tinkerbell represents the mother goddess of fairies. That's what it represents. And I went over this in the first one, but that's what it's going into, right? And Peter Pan represents the father god, going back to who? Pan. Pan is pretty much the head pagan god, the Greek god known as Pan. You have Osiris, you have Pan, you have Baal, right? So it's very important for us to understand, because the esotericism is what's always going to be relevant. It's always going to be relevant. Whether it be surreptitious, overt, covert, is always going to be there, prevalent and relevant, right? First announced in November 2022 as a Peter Pan-based horror film, the film was subsequently revealed to be set in the TCU shared continuity. The cast was announced between January and June 2024, with Bonham reprising her role from Winnie the Pooh Blood and Honey 2 as Mary Darling. Peter Pan's Neverland Nightmare is scheduled to be theatrically released in the United States on January 13, 2025. The number 13 referencing death. That's what it references. Number 13 in tarot represents death. In the United Kingdom on February 24th, 2025. Right? 224, that represents 6. 224 represents 66, actually. So it's very important for us to maintain our understanding just when it comes to the numerological bent, because it's all under the same Luciferian esoteric umbrella. Now, keep in mind that there's always a right hand, but what we're before and what is conveyed to us is always going to be from the left. And when I say there's always a right hand, like numerology and all these different concepts, there's a right hand to it as well. But like I said, what's being pushed on us is always the left hand. It's always the left hand vibration, because that's the world we live in, you know? And let's not forget the age. Number 13 represent the age of the young boy who pretty much was used in the allegations against Michael Jackson, Arvizos. We're going to get into it, but the number 13 is definitely prevalent. 20 years after the whole case, when it comes to Michael Jackson's acquittal, you have this movie come out. And that was the end of Neverland Ranch in 2005. So you have this horror movie depicting Neverland. It's just interesting, man. Very, very interesting. The People versus Michael Jackson. Full title, 11-33-603. Full title, 11-33-603. 11-33-63. 11-33-63. The numerological significance is something that they always push, especially on a level that's covert. But you have to pick up on, you know, what the understanding is. The number 11 represents rebirth, transformation, activation. Number 33, the Masonic element, the light bringer, light bearer, enlightenment. 63, 666, the serpent, the knowledge and wisdom on the left-hand side, Saturnian principles. That's what it's all about. In this world, the Luciferian energy is a constant, and they have to maintain it. The People of the State of California versus Michael Joe Jackson was a 2005 criminal trial held in Santa Barbara County Superior Court in Santa Maria, California. The American pop singer Michael Jackson was charged with molesting Gavin Arvizo, who was 13. The reason why I'm emphasizing the number 13 is because it's a reoccurring theme. It's a reoccurring theme. Remember the film that's being released on January 13th, right? And then you have the Michael Jackson situation in regards to his acquittal. And I believe that was June 13, 2005. Let's just get more into it. 13 years old at the time of the alleged abuse at his Neverland Ranch estate in Los Olivos, California. That's why you had the whole Leave in Neverland thing. It was all part of the takedown of Mr. Michael Jackson. 5 years later, he's removed, allegedly removed, because there's a lot of suspicion about that as well.
This first tour for you, I mean, just seeing the journey before the now, you know, and
Ooh, excuse me.
it must be amazing to create something, man, just create it,
Yeah.
and have people attracted to it.
Yeah, I mean that's amazing. That's amazing, and I mean I've seen, you know, I can't stress enough. You know, I grew up in a record shop. I've just seen millions of examples. I've probably put up, you know, all of these, you know, a lot of your favorite artists' CD back in inventory. Probably done that. You know what I'm saying? So, I've had a lot of great examples, a lot of motivation to see this happening, to see this possibility.
Yeah, I've been told that you're like.
I went to Neverland.
Did you?
Yeah. See back in when the independent record shops, when the mom and pop shops were important.
Yeah.
You know, we used to get a lot of free compensation for everything. I went to the Hard Knock Life tour. We went to you can't pay to go to Neverland. You have to get invited. And so he invited all of the independent stores to come down, bro.
Oh, wow.
It's the best place on earth. Word. That was tight. But I'm just saying, like, I've just seen a lot of great I said that to say I've seen a lot of great examples of how far you can take this with music alone.
Man.
Being a role model or a mogul in music alone, how far you can take it.
You know, like I said, you'll always hear about a certain rapper or celebrity, singer, what have you, talk about how they ran into, you know, or they had something to do with something that has to do with another celebrity, even in the midst of them not having anything to do with that person in that moment when, you know, when it comes to them being there. But, you know, on the outset, it may look like that, but intrinsically, it may be something that has to do with a form of predictive programming. Just like with Chris Tucker, where he talks about him being at Neverland Ranch and then, you know, years later, he links up with Michael Jackson. Not saying the same thing for Ab-Soul, because obviously Michael Jackson died in 2009. Ab-Soul, he took off in around like 2012, 13. But it's just one of those things when it comes to the connection. And Ab-Soul is someone who promotes Luciferianism. Like, he promotes Luciferianism. Like I said, he has an album called Do What Thou Wilt. I kind of covered that. He goes into it heavily. He's someone who, you know, was pretty much used to push that. The whole Aleister Crowley, just him caping for it. Because he's someone who is down with the program. He is a Luciferian. That's what he is. He even has a song called Bohemian Grove. It's like, come on, man. You already know what it is. These people, they're part of a certain sinister system that's, you know, it's really, really complex. But it's not that complex if you understand things on a certain level. I only say complex because that's really, you know, applicable to the average person who don't really understand these things. But, you know, you should do your due diligence. You really should.